Welcome to Young Professionals Cocktails and Company with Lisa Smith. This is Bring Your Own Beverage edition, so feel free to bring it out. So Joseph Brandon will be today's moderator. He is the general manager for PMB Media. Please send your questions directly to him if you have any throughout, or feel free to unmute yourselves and engage verbally. It's a small group, so we can have an open discussion and plenty of engagement. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Joseph.
Well, thank you, Bree. We are really fortunate tonight to have Lisa Smith with us. She is now the president of Georgia Power for the Southwest region of Georgia. She's been in the community for a while and gotten plugged in and engaged. And I know she's got a treasure trove of knowledge and information to share with us tonight. If you do have a question, I'm going to let her give her a little bio. I always find it interesting to talk to people that work for the company, aka Southern Company, because they've got all these different divisions, but you can move around or to different things. And let her talk a little bit about her path to our neck of the woods. But if you want to, I've got some questions that I can ask, some conversation starters, but, feel free to raise your cocktail. Lauren, hold up your beer if you've got a question, and, we'll keep an eye on that, or you can send a question in the chat. We're, again, just excited to be on a Zoom call that I can have a cocktail and not conceal it. Oh, did I say that out loud? So anyways, welcome. Lisa, thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us, with young professionals, talking about your career, your life, leadership skills that you've learned, and things like that. So, all right, so start from the beginning, but brief. Give us your history and how you wound up here in Columbus.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all. So I recognize some faces. Some of you I have not had a chance to meet yet. I've been in Columbus for just a little over a year, and a lot of that time has been teleworking at home, not able to go out and meet with everyone. So I look forward to engaging with you in person in the future. I hope you and all of your families are safe and well. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for this invitation. I love doing this, so I'm just glad to be here. I do want this to be informal. I feel like it could get real boring really quickly if you're just listening to me. So I want you all to engage with me. Kaylee, you can even have your dog barking in the background. It's all good. Joseph, your son. We welcome everyone. But a little bit about me. So my official title is Region Vice President for West Region. And Joseph, you did have the right information, but a lot has changed and it continues to change. And so just about maybe 3 weeks ago, our region, Georgia Power region, basically stopped at the LaGrange area and went down to the end of the Georgia line on the southwest side of the state. Well, we've just recently acquired all the way up to Rome and LJ, so it's the whole west side of the state. And so right off the bat, I will tell you, change is constant. I mean, you all know this. I'm sure you are experiencing it in your lives as well, but it seems like more now than ever. But I'm originally from Mississippi. Anybody from Mississippi? No? Okay. I grew up there. I went to school at Mississippi State and achieved my engineering degree and went to work at Mississippi Power. And I don't know if you've ever felt like this. I enjoy Mississippi. My family's there. It's beautiful. But there was always something saying, okay, I'd love to see something else. What else is out there? And I worked at Mississippi Power for about 4 years as an engineer. And it used to be that there was this formula. If you did this, if you were an engineer for 4 years, then you would move to this role. And then you would move to this role. And it was almost like you could time it. Okay, she's next in line for that. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Everything has changed, everything. But I realized early on that it is good to see different things. So my husband and I moved to Atlanta, and talking about a culture shock, it was wonderful. We have enjoyed our time in Georgia. We at Georgia Power, and maybe at your companies as well, at one time we really believed you needed to move around in order to gain an understanding of the whole company. And so Mississippi Power is a sister company to Georgia Power, which is all under the Southern Company umbrella. And so you were expected to move if you wanted to advance. I think that's different as well, which I feel like may not serve us well in the long run, because I can tell you, my family and I have moved 9 times, and the experiences we've gained as a family living in different communities, for me, being able to experience different roles, it's been tremendous. And so I'd like to encourage you all. Deanna, I heard you say you were in the military before, and now you're going on to do something different. Your quality of life, your opportunities to contribute in the community, the more broad you are, to me, it just allows for that. So I have worked on the engineering side. I've worked in our sales and marketing group. I have worked in what we call region external in different roles, which is what I do now. And basically anything that touches the west side of the state, whether it's economic development, customer service, construction, engineering, my team and I, we oversee that. We are the ones that you will see in the community most of the time. And we will call on the behind the scenes, the people who really keep it going, but we try to be that face. We're the ones that will be at the chamber meetings and at the development authority meetings and going on the chamber trips. We want to engage with you. So I didn't go into a lot of details. I'd like for us to really have more, I'll be glad to answer questions, but my background has been broad. We've moved a lot. Things are totally different. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. That's just the reality. And life has been good.
So Lisa, talk about some of those leadership opportunities though, because that is a huge shift. I tried to stick out engineering for a few years at Auburn and figured out I couldn't do math, so I went to accounting. But they're very technical degrees, and so now you're more in a management role in a sense, in the community-facing role. Obviously, still applying your engineering because you're in what amounts to an engineering company,
right?
With a specific product. But talk about some of your opportunities over your career that bridged you from that straight engineering degree or that straight engineering training to management and community and things.
Gotcha. So a couple of things. The formula that I talked about earlier, back then, you would get an engineering bachelor's degree and everyone got an MBA. That was the formula. And so that allowed you to have a greater understanding of the business side, leading people. And so I did that. I worked on my MBA at Kennesaw State. And so our company really is, although most people start out in a technical position, that's just really how you start. The good thing about engineering is you can do very, very broad. I'm an electrical engineer, but you can be an industrial engineer, mechanical engineer, work at the power plants. It's just very broad, but it really like a lot of degrees, college degrees, it really just sends a message to leaders in the company that you can solve problems, that you have the work ethic. And so it's really used as a foundation. I am a firm believer that your passions find you. No matter what job you have, you can own a daycare. If you're really good with interior decorating, you're going to find a way to do that. It's like your passions will always seek you out. And so growing up in Mississippi, if you can imagine, there was a lot of poverty, just a lot of needs in the community. And so I watched my parents and my grandparents really focus on serving in the community. And so that's how I grew up. I have a passion for that. And so even though I have an engineering background, I've always shifted towards, okay, how do we start a scholarship here? How do we serve on this board and do this? And so I'm just fortunate enough, really blessed enough to have a job where that is what I do. That's now my main focus. And the technical side is really used as a foundation. Yeah.
So what would you suggest, got a question, with the changing times, between what was normal, the normal progression, and then, in this pandemic society that we're in and the changes that are going to come from that, what would you recommend to somebody? How do they prepare professionally for the changing times?
So I know this is going to be posted later on, but I believe in just always being honest. And so I want to be honest about something. To me, when you're in a crisis, challenging time like we are in now, you really get an opportunity to see what people are made of. So when things are great, people can appear to have it all together. When we are in a tough situation, if you really are a leader, if you are someone who is creative, innovative, you want to find solutions, all of that will show up. And so I'll tell you what's been really interesting. So I know that everybody here, you've been aware of keeping up with the social unrest with protesters, Black Lives Matter. Georgia Power and Southern Company has really stepped out and said, we will not tolerate racism. Just, they help promote the hate crimes legislation. I say they, we. But what I've noticed, some of the leaders, and it's more middle management, may not be as comfortable. And I think it's okay if you're honest about that. But what I've really seen, and I don't, want to air any dirty laundry, but just in general, even outside of Georgia Power, I've seen people kind of shrink because they don't want to say the wrong thing. But that's not what you need in a leader. It's okay if you're an individual contributor, but if you are a leader, this is the time for you, even if you get it wrong, even if you make mistakes, if your heart is in the right place, this is when you step up and you try to figure out the solutions. You try to figure out how to bring people together. So it's just been interesting. To answer your question, Joseph, about how people prepare in these changing times, I believe that we have to always put people at the center of what we do. And so my team and I, we've been very intentional because we're all teleworking. A lot of people are at home by themselves, very intentional about calling. We have team calls. We have calls like this, send birthday cards. We check on each other. So you really have to stay concerned and show compassion for your people. At the same time, we're using this opportunity to be very strategic. So we've taken our strategic plan and we've put together, okay, this is how we're going to exist with the COVID situation. As soon as we're able to go back to work, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to focus. And so I would encourage everyone to continue to be proactive and aggressive and embrace change. I'm very interested to see, our business is pretty traditional, but for those who are involved in retail, the restaurant businesses, the arts, Stephanie, you know, what does this do for you, and how do you plan for all of these changes? But you certainly have to be proactive. You do.
And I think it's interesting for you because, you know, Georgia Power's field force, I mean, obviously you've got folks in a corporate role, but you're deploying engineers in the field, whether to repair or the storm that rolled through just a little bit ago, you know, repairing lines and things like that. How would you describe your leadership style dealing with those various, I mean, you got pre-COVID and COVID, but the leadership style with the different types of employees that you have, whether they're corporate office types or in the field, engineers or linemen?
Hello? Hello? Uh-oh.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, you froze on me just a little bit. But I think I heard you ask about the different work groups and how do we lead.
How your leadership style for leading the different types of employees that you've got, whether they're the linemen that are going in the field or
Right.
your the corporate office type, and then how COVID has impacted that.
So one of the things that I have found, we have some subject matter experts. It is not uncommon for people to stay at Georgia Power for 40 plus years. So they know a whole heck of a lot more than I do. So I believe in order to continue to be successful, you have to engage with employees and get their ideas and their thoughts. It has been a little tough in that we like to be in the community. So if there is a meeting face-to-face, we want to be there. I'll give you an example. Enrichment Services, I don't know if anyone on the call is familiar with that group, but they help the underserved in the community, so people who may need help paying their power bill. So they have moved into our former drive-through on Veterans. They had a big ribbon cutting. We were excited. We've been working with them, but we didn't go. And so you had elected officials there, you had all these people, and we weren't there. And that is tough, but we're committed to keeping everyone safe. And so we just have to make some very tough decisions, but we also get the input from the employees to make sure we're considering everything. And we just treat each group according to their work function. Like you said, the linemen, the engineers, they've still been going out, but I will tell you, the longer we go and the longer the numbers increase, the more direct impact we have. Our folks are really being exposed to some things. So.
All right, so taking it back a little bit though, can you share, and you might not share a name, but you know, a friend, a family member, or a mentor that you credit for helping shape your character? Who would that be, as much as you want to share, and what did you learn?
Gotcha. So I'm pretty confident right now, if I ask each of you, who is, picture in your mind the best leader that you've ever been around. All of us have someone in mind, someone that will come to your mind. And for me, one of those people, I was relatively young in my career, and I was still on the technical side of the business, Joseph, like you asked about earlier. I was an engineering supervisor at that time. And there was a person who does what I'm doing now. He's retired now, but he had a position. It was called an area manager. where Plant Vogtle, the nuclear plant, is. And so he needed someone with a lot of experience already in the community, and I didn't have that. But he gave me a chance. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was going to be retiring in a few years. And so he poured, it was like all of this information. This is what you do. This is how you handle this. And if I messed up, he would say, that was horrible. What were you thinking? It was wonderful, wonderful. And we all need people in our lives like that. There was another leader that I had a chance to work for. I was really young in my career, and he was a vice president. And he gave a speech. After the speech, he asked me, how did I do? And I was like, oh, it was great. And he said, if you can't tell me the truth, if you lie to me, I don't need you on my team. And it was a horrible speech. So I have learned to truly be a leader and to contribute. You need those people that will tell you the truth and you tell them the truth. But I will tell you, Mr. Walter Dukes, he is that person that comes to mind for me. He's a pastor now and retired from the company, but just truly, truly cared about people, truly. And it's kind of like that saying that Maya Angelou has, that people will forget what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. And that's Walter Dukes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of a question that stems out of that a little bit with your career path, and you talking about you had kind of the quote unquote traditional career path through Southern Company. Knowing that and looking back, if you were giving advice to someone that wasn't going to take that traditional path, what might that look like?
Yes.
Or what would it be?
So that is what I love about everybody on this call. It's a totally different generation, I feel. I love the enthusiasm. I love the flexibility. I hear some of the parents that I work with saying, my child called me from New York and said, college isn't for me, I'm starting my own business. That didn't happen in my generation. So kudos to all of you for being open-minded. I believe you all are going to change the world. I sincerely believe that. And so what that looks like where I work, I encourage people, look outside the company. You do not have to stay here 40 years. If it's rewarding and you feel challenged and you love it, stay, grow. But I'm not going to tell you, you have to follow this certain path. That's just not the way it is anymore. So what that looks like, I think everyone should be honest and do an assessment of what they have passion for, what their experiences are, where they want to be, what do they really want to do, to have that real conversation with yourself and be intentional about your decisions. That's just the bottom line.
All right, so now it's time for, you talk about honesty, being honest. What do you see from the millennial generation, this age group? You know, obviously there's a lot of folks that like to fuss because millennials have staked out their own path in a lot of ways. But what do you see from the millennial generation that we could be doing? What do you see about us? And then is there something you say, well, it's maybe not the best thing, but if you did it this way, or what sort of advice would you give in that regard?
So what I see is the enthusiasm for life. And I think with the millennials, and I've heard that millennials don't like to be put into the same category, that they want to be seen as individuals. But if we are talking about that group, I see a group of individuals who are very courageous and brave. When I talked earlier about people being willing to take a stand, I I think through social media and other means, this generation is just very compassionate. So I'm very excited about what I see. Now, I will tell you, I've had a couple of conversations. There's this term called deference. And so it may be a little old-fashioned, but if I meet someone who's been with a company 40 years, I'm going to listen. I may not agree, but I will respect their opinion because, as my parents would say, they've been where I'm trying to go. I have run into some millennials who come in knowing everything. That's not true of everyone, but for those individuals who readily share their opinion and they're still learning what a watt is or an amp, it's like, wait a minute. There's a way to contribute, but this will kill your career. So, you know, I think it's up to me and others who see that to just share that information. But overall, I'm excited about what millennials and younger aged groups can bring and offer. I will tell you, I was on a call earlier today. I don't know if you've heard of 21st Century Leaders. It's a group of high school students. It's about roughly 100 kids that participate in this leadership academy, this summer camp. They were asking questions that blew me away about nuclear. I mean, just brilliant, brilliant. And so when I see those things, I'm so excited, so encouraged, but I'm also concerned sometimes that that level of respect and just knowing how to communicate may be something we can work on.
So there's a balance. You see the positive energy out there and just finding that balance. I think deference is a perfect word for what you're talking about. So you're talking about generational change and taking leadership roles. Obviously, this is a young professionals is a leadership program, kind of, sort of, but for Columbus. And I always, love hearing what people think about our community, our joint community. What do you see young professionals, young leaders in our community doing to help advance Columbus?
Gotcha. So how many people, by show of hands, are from Columbus? Okay. All right. So I'll be honest.
Not many. So this is an interesting crew then.
Yeah.
Normally it's like stacked the other way. So this is great.
So I'll be honest with you, when I received a call about moving to Columbus, I was like, where? What? And the executive who called said, trust me, you're gonna love Columbus. It's a great opportunity. And because I did trust this individual, I was like, okay, we'll try it. It's awesome. It is awesome. For those who are from here, I don't know everyone's background, but of all of the places we've lived in Georgia, this is probably one of the most progressive communities. When you think about the giving, the philanthropic, very generous leadership and strong leadership, if there's something that's needed, people come together. This is a wonderful community. And when I think about this organization, young professionals, usually other communities where I've lived, it's a struggle to try to get everybody together. It starts off with a lot of momentum and then it kind of dies down. So the fact that you all are thinking differently and doing things virtually, it may not be as much fun as having a cocktail in person, but it's just very forward thinking. And there are people I see on this call that I see in the community serving. And so you are community leaders. And so I just applaud you and want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because, you know, you are really the future for Columbus.
Anyone want to hop in with a question? I can stop for a second and let folks. Anybody?
So if y'all don't ask me a question, I'm going to call on someone and ask you a question.
Oh, snap. Someone better ask.
Hey, Lisa. Good to see you. I was curious. So what kind of decision process have y'all been using to make changes for the company for the last year? You know, there's been a lot of information on both sides, and what changes have you guys implemented? And I guess you're all working from home, and how has that really changed, you know, what your decision process?
Gotcha. So you know what's been interesting, and I think this is true for a lot of different organizations, you realize that you can really get a lot done. Before we didn't, you know, there were some people who work from home sometimes, but it wasn't the norm. We expect for you to be in the office and then go out from there, but we are more, people want to work from home, and you can still get things done. So we've conducted surveys of the employees as we're thinking about reentry. I would just say there are a lot of takeaways from this current situation that, you know, it's certainly a difficult situation. I don't want to make it seem like it's light or anything like that, but there have been some benefits. I think you can learn and have some positive takeaways from any situation. And so that's really, we've just learned how to work smarter and more efficiently. Even before COVID, we were always trying to find ways to cut costs, and we call it modernizing our business. But if you think about electricity, all of your devices at home are more efficient. Your power bill is probably not as much as it used to be as we continue to modernize in our society. Well, that's our business. And so we can't have a local office for you to go in and pay your bill and visit with Sally when most people are going online. It doesn't financially make sense for us to do that. And so we've done some things over the last few years that I never thought we would do. We actually sold our sister company in Florida. What? We would never in the past even consider doing that. But we're making some tough financial decisions because we owe it to our stakeholders and our customers to be the best company that we can be. So I hope that answers your question, Stephanie. We're constantly thinking about change and how to be more efficient. Thank you for asking.
So if I can kind of piggyback off of that, there have been several leaders in several companies that we've listened to more recently, and some were saying, you know, I guess kind of giving us the good and bad of for the change from in the office to online or working from home. Was the pivot difficult for your company?
I'm sure it depends on the individual, but overall, no. We start usually every meeting talking about safety. Even if you're meeting for donuts and coffee, we usually have a safety briefing. Safety is our number one value above anything else. And so overall, I would say there were not people who were surprised when we said, stay at home. We'll give you whatever tools you need to work from home. Let's talk about daycare needs if you have those. So we've just been very flexible, but I would say the challenge has been more so around telling people, okay, this means don't go to the office to print this out and make this phone call. You really have to work from home. And so just not being used to that, it took a little while. There are some people who love being around other people, and they have really at times struggled. So we have these well-being updates. We've shared counseling services with people, because that is, that human side of it can be challenging for those, especially if they don't have children or spouses at home. So, but overall it has gone much, much better, Deanna, than we thought it would.
So now, not to monopolize the conversation, but I know there are several companies throughout the United States that are considering making this a new normal, or at least until next year. Is that the direction your company is leaning in?
It certainly feels like it. So we have team members who are continuing to watch the numbers and other factors to make a decision. We basically have 3 phases. And so for phase 1, and that's where we are now, it's mainly the construction side of the business that is back at work. But we won't, my team, those who are in the community, will not go back to work, the traditional work setting, until phase 3. And honestly, we just haven't seen the information that we need to see in order to move forward. So it's already August, basically. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's next year before we go back to our new normal, whatever that is. But we are taking our time because safety is number one. As long as you all have not noticed a difference in your service, that is the main thing.
Lights are on.
The lights are on.
So, Lisa, you're talking about that, and it just made me think, talking about where companies are making decisions. And obviously, the society or our world is changing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, automation to a certain degree, that would mean a lot of things in different, in manufacturing especially, you know, would mean less people. But now we're entering a space where even automation is going to start significantly impacting even corporate and back office and office jobs, not just the mechanical, you know, manufacturing and things like that. What advice would you give to somebody, knowing what you know, seeing what you've seen, a young professional in the middle of their career where they might not be at a decision authority yet, but companies are changing? What can a YP do to enhance their prospects, either inside their own company, or maybe they need to be looking somewhere else? What would you say to that in this transition?
Gotcha. So I think all of you are in unique positions because you have an opportunity to network with each other. You have exposure to other community leaders. And so I think your network, you have to take advantage of it. And so to have those conversations, to understand what's happening at Synovus or TSYS or some of the other large organizations here in this community, you have to do that so that you can make wise decisions. Ask questions, engage with people. You know, mentors, there are formal programs where you're assigned a mentor, but the best mentors I've ever had and the best relationships with the mentee is when it's just organic and we talk about things. There's a group of ladies that I work with. We don't even work in the same organization, which is great because we hear updates from other groups. We get on a Zoom call maybe once a month and we just talk what's happening in your group. What do I need to know about this situation, so that you can make an informed decision. But the wrong thing to do, Joseph, to your point, is to kind of just wait and see. You can't do that. You have to be very wise, very aggressive, and just stay informed. And I always think about, so we were talking about Georgia Power and how there are all these different departments. I always think about what is the core part of the business. So we may have a group that sells outdoor lights. That's a good part of our business. We may have people who go into homes to do audits. And I try to think about, as I'm having career discussions with people, if this were your company and you really, really had to streamline and focus on the core part of the business, what would that be? Would it be keeping the lights on? Would it be the engineering side? Are we going to always be able to be in the community and serve on the chamber board? And I don't know. Those are conversations you have to have with yourself. But we're not going anywhere. So wherever this gets posted, we're still going to be in the community.
Right. Yes, please keep the lights on board, right? So we can have Zoom calls while we're sitting here. And my son is rolling through here. So he's awesome. He's playing grocery stores. That's great. All right. So on the flip side, one of the questions people hate to be asked in an interview or something like that, what is a mistake in your life that you made? And what did you learn from it?
So I do not mind sharing. I really believed for a number of years that working hard and being the first one there, the last one to leave, just really giving it your all was the key to success. And it is so not. It is a given that you do that. It's not even part of the conversation a lot of times when you're considering who you're going to promote or who's next. It's expected that people are doing that. I don't know if you all have heard of this book. It's called PI, Performance, Image, and Exposure, and it's by a man named Harvey Coleman. And it's a very quick read. But what he talks about, your performance is a very, very small part of the equation. Exposure means more than anything. Image means more than performance. But I made that mistake early on. I'd spent maybe 10 years working hard and just assuming that I would get recognized or have opportunities. And it took someone pulling me to the side and saying, this is great. It's great that you like people and you go and meet with this person or that person, but there's no science to what you're doing. What is it that you really want to do? And if you want to work at Fort Benning on behalf of Georgia Power, then this is who you need to go talk to. This is who you need to spend. You need to be very intentional and strategic. And it is truly about relationships. I know that can sound shallow, but that's just the human side of all of us. If I have an opportunity in my opening in my organization, and I just recently met with Joseph, and we had a great conversation, and I know what's on his mind, he is going to come to my mind before someone I've never even talked to. And it really doesn't even matter what's on the resume. If it's somewhat equal, I'm going to go with Joseph. And so my mistake was really waiting so long before someone said, this is how this really works. You know, my parents didn't go to college. They didn't have jobs like these. So I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just encourage people to have a plan and to focus on definitely doing a good job, but relationships are key.
Such a good point about, the performance piece that's expected at this point.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of people that just want a job, but or can perform a set task. But what are the other things that you're bringing to the table? So you mentioned. So we've got about, I don't know, a little over 10 minutes. So anyone hop in if you want to. While you're thinking about your question, you want to hop in though. You mentioned a book. So what are some of the things that you read, or what would be some books that you suggest young professionals read?
So, we're reading books quite often. I love reading. But I really, there's usually a question about work-life balance. And so that's something I have not figured out yet. But I have decided that I like to read for pleasure. And so, when I read, it's usually not business related, but there are a couple of books. The Harvey Coleman book, for sure, I would recommend. And it's called PI, Performance, Image, and Exposure. There's a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I can't remember who wrote that book, but if you're in a leadership role, especially if you have acquired a team where you didn't hire the people, that's a great book to read because people have different personality types. Who's your talker on the team? Who's your go-getter? Who's the person who's bitter? And, you can see these different styles. So that book is very helpful. But for me, I love mysteries. I love reading some books about history. Just anything. I love reading about reading authors who give stories from the South. I'm proud to be from this area, and just so I don't know. Pretty much anything that's entertainment, I'll read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So as we start moving towards a healthier society where we can start getting back out, what is the first thing you're looking forward to do when you can kind of resume normal activities?
Oh, great question. So I love to travel. So I mentioned to you the ladies, we get on a call about once a month. There are about 3 other ladies consistently that we travel, and we believe in going to a new place, a place we've never been. So we had gotten into this routine of going at least 2 to 3 times a year to a different place, and we haven't been able to do that. And we're actually going to sneak away next weekend and go to Chateau Elan just to have a change of scenery. And we're all scared to death, and we have our Lysol wipes packed and all of that. But travel, I still have not been to Italy. I want to go, and then all of this happened. So I have a credit at Delta right now. I'm just ready.
Yep.
So
I have an airline credit too that I'm holding on to.
I hear you. So that's just loved learning and seeing new things. So I'm going to call on somebody. Can I do that?
Absolutely.
So Terry, as a young professional, what's been one of the challenges that you've faced?
I think as a young professional, one of the biggest challenges is kind of what you mentioned. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times as a young professional, you get into these environments and you want to be heard, you want to give your input. But my personality type is a lot of, speak when spoken to, because all these people in the room, especially a lot of you may not know, I work in the same office as Lisa. So there at Georgia Power, there's a lot of people that have been there a long time. And so you don't want to overstep your boundaries and be the millennial hotshot in the group. So it's trying to find that balance of giving your input, giving your new perspectives, but also respecting everybody else's opinions.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was excellent. Yeah, and so I would like to encourage everyone, if you are given an opportunity to be at the table, even if you're brand new, if you're the youngest person, whatever, you have to speak up. That spot is reserved for you to hear your perspective, but it is all about how you communicate it. So I'll give an example. There is a young man, at the time he had been with the company, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. I'd been with the company 25 years, and we were playing golf. And he asked me out of the blue, do you ever think you're too nice sometimes? And it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. And it took all I had to say, do what? Who are you? What are you talking about? So I waited for a little while, and I just said what I'm saying now. You may have all kinds of thoughts. I may have all kinds of thoughts about you, but you need to be wise and thoughtful in what you say and how you say it. And really, what is the objective? What is it that you're trying to achieve? You have gained nothing with that question. Even if you think I'm too nice, maybe you can ask another way. Have you ever, Lisa, seen where a person being very nice, where it has held them back in their career? That's a much better way to ask that question. So that has been probably 10 years ago. I still remember that person asked me that question and the way he asked. I'm just saying. So if you're at the table, Terry, speak up. People want to hear your thoughts and opinions. It's just in the house.
100%. Thank you.
I love it. That was like planted, Lisa. That was great.
Yeah. We watched this beforehand.
Anyone else?
I do have a question. Hi, my name is Soraya. I know this is probably a question you may get often, but you are a female in leadership, and not just a female, but a Black woman in leadership. So how do you think that you've managed to overcome some of the barriers that have come your way in the process of getting to the point where you're at now? And then how do you, I guess, with the subtle hand, deal with the different people who may not be in, I guess, open to your leadership?
Gotcha. Great question. So if you are an African-American female, I can't speak to anybody else's experience. I can only speak to my experience. From Mississippi, you've experienced some things, both personally, even when you were in college. When I first started working for Mississippi Power, and those experiences, I believe, prepare you for future experiences, right? So it is not even now uncommon to be the only person of color in certain situations and the only female. Now, as I said, in Columbus, it's very different because it is much more progressive. But for example, in going to a meeting and people looking like, why is she here? But I've learned, Ms. Wright, to look at the heart of people and what they intend. And I give people grace, and I try to educate more than be defensive. I feel like I'm here. I'm going to, just like I was sharing with Terry, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to share my opinions. To know me is to love me. We're going to get along. But it's all about just representing and being your authentic self. And You just have to speak up, but there's a way, again, to do it. I know that when I came to Columbus, so I was told, you're the first African-American woman to be in that role. So just be mindful of that when you make decisions. And so I was thinking, what does that mean? I can only be me. But that has not been an issue. Maybe there's something behind the scenes that I don't know about, but we have great employees in this area. I just think you have to, Soraya, am I saying that right?
It's Soraya, like a ray of sunshine.
Soraya. You have to be bold in a good way. You have to be confident. There are many times that I've seen some of my peers early on, great guys. So a couple of white males maybe talking in the office about golf or something else, not here in Columbus, Terry, but in other areas. And for a minute, I'm like, well, they're talking about something that's not my conversation. If I'm here, I'm going to go up, hey, and contribute. You have to show up. And I think that just helps with everything that we're seeing is really, to me, more than just diversity. It's the inclusion piece. And so you have to, if you have an opportunity to be there to help shape what inclusion looks like, you just have to do it. You have to show up, do a great job, and don't back away from it. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Good deal. I could do this all night. Y'all are a good group.
Well, I don't want to end it if someone else has got something they want to ask.
Quint, anything on your mind? Is life going well?
I was about to call on Quint.
It's going well. I'm a teacher, so right
boy.
now it's a little bit nerve-wracking with trying to adjust with some new normal, whatever that'll be, depending on the day or the week.
Gotcha. So you froze on me just a little bit, but I think I heard you say it's just been challenging.
Yeah, I'm a teacher, so these last couple of weeks have been a little bit. I've been all over the place with. One, we were going to start where students had a choice between in-person or online, and now we're starting 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks of the year are going to be online, and then I know the the State Board of Education was going to push the school year back for the entire state, but that was thrown out of the window. So just trying to figure out what's going to be normal for this school year. Amidst all of the other stuff that's going on has just been a challenge.
Sorry, side note, because I work with the youth orchestra and I saw Dr. Lewis's plant. Joseph's laughing because he used to be on my board. But I'm trying, so they did throw out the statewide delay.
Right.
Oh, okay. See, that's very important for me because I have to decide when rehearsals start and how that's going to look.
Yes. Well, Quint, we certainly are thinking about all of our teachers and students and parents. So I wish you safety and just peace of mind. I can only imagine what that's like.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Joseph, you've been a great moderator, so thank you.
Joseph, you're on mute.
Right. I can't talk about on mute. Golly Moses. I really try to pay attention, but we don't do enough Zoom meetings at the radio station. Sorry. I was going to ask one, I guess doesn't have to be the last question, but a tough question. You've been talking about it, not around it, but about it all night. How do we have tough conversations?
Yeah. I'm
not even going to add anything other than just ask, how do we have tough conversations?
Right. So the United Way board had a meeting this week, and I don't know if anybody here is on that board. I'm still relatively new to that board, but you probably all know Ben Moser, the president of our United Way group here. Great people. And so it's, there's this passion, this enthusiasm. What do we do to help? And I think you have to have the conversations before you immediately move to action, because it's the that we need to have. There are a lot of resources out there. There are people who are experts who can help guide conversations. But we talked about networking earlier and relationships. We have to get to a point where, Joseph, you feel comfortable. We have a relationship so that you can call me and say, I was wondering about this. Forgive me if I say something wrong or if it seems just crazy, but help me understand this. And I've got to get to a point where I can do that to Kayla or Lauren or whomever. But that's the only way that we're gonna grow closer together. You just gotta do it. We can't. And if you come to me and you want to have a very serious conversation and I dismiss you or treat you mean, then I'm wrong for that. But I don't think that's what you'll get. I think people want to talk. They want you to understand. So we just have to do it. I know for us, I think I mentioned we have these weekly calls. We've been trying to bring in some of the experts to talk about things, to answer questions. I mean, basic questions. What do you call African American? Should it be African American, Black? I mean, we've gotten all kinds of questions, but that's okay. Ask the questions. Let's talk about it. But I can tell that some people are uncomfortable, and hopefully we can get there, because I'd hate for us to go another 10, 20 years and then we have another situation where that results in rioting and protesting. We need to get to a place where there's healing and we're more progressive. So I encourage everybody, talk, get to know each other, have some coffee, have a cocktail, talk. There you go, Deanna.
So can I ask this real quick before we get off? As a student potentially looking for a job soon, what is Georgia Power's stance, or what does their diversity and inclusion organization look like?
Gotcha. So we have a very robust diversity and inclusion organization. We have groups that are called employee resource groups. There are 9 different groups that they're employee led. So we have a group that focuses on the LGBT community, the people with special needs community, African American community, Hispanic community, and it just goes on and on, but there are 9 different groups. And these groups are given funding to help with understanding and programming. We have a military veterans ERG. And so that group does a really good job. They've put together, because of what we've been talking about tonight, some webinars that answer questions. They actually have people available. You can call if you have a question and they'll talk through it with you. So just very robust. We also have a group called Corporate Relations, and so they focus on community service, but for certain different demographics. So, so imagine, let me say, to make sure that every voice is heard. So sometimes if you go to the chamber meetings or different events, you start to see the same people, kind of like going to church. So where's the Asian community? You may have a few people, but is every voice being heard? So this group, Corporate Relations, they have special programming that focuses on our customers and those groups that may not be heard all of the time. So we had an event with all of the ministers in Columbus earlier this year to hear about how they're serving in the community so that we could help them. So that's another part of the diversity and inclusion discussion. So as you are looking for a job, Deanna, or anyone, you can go to georgiapower.com careers, and it shows you all the jobs that are open, and we would love to have you.
Now, I saw Soraya make a move for the mute mic. And Kayla's got something to close us out, but I want to make sure, Soraya, were you good?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I've enjoyed you all so much. This has been a great way. Wish I had a big glass of wine with me, but other than that, it's been a great time. Thank you all. Thank you. I hope that there was something that was said that you can take away, a little nugget.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you all for tuning in. One quick thing, I know everyone either wants to eat dinner or already has, hopefully. But we have trivia on July 28th, so everyone's welcome to join. Sorry if you hear my dog barking. But again, thank you so much, Lisa, for doing this, and thank you all for attending.
All right, wonderful. Everybody have a good night.
And this will be posted and sent out to everyone. So if you didn't catch everything, you'll get it on there. So thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.